We're going to talk all about that. We've got John Guandolo with us. John is a 1989 graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy. He took a commission as an officer in the United States Marines Corps. He was a platoon commander in combat operations in Desert Shield Storm 91 through 96. He is a former FBI special agent. He's a nationally recognized expert on Muslim Brotherhood's Islamic movement. And John, we are so happy to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on with you all.
John, you have got, and first of all, I just want to say thank you for serving our country, by the way, as for all the years that you've served our country. We sure appreciate that. I always like to do that with people who serve our country, and I want to thank you for doing that.
Well, thanks for saying so. I appreciate that.
John, you have an incredible resume here, and we're going to talk about this book here that you've got called Raising a Jihadi Generation, Understanding the Muslim Brotherhood Movement in America. Before we do that, I want all of our AFR listeners to understand your background, where you've been, what you've been doing, because you really are a counterterrorism expert. You've been with the FBI, the military. You're an expert on all of this stuff. So kind of fill us in on your background a little bit, what and why you know this stuff.
Well, I think that's where to start. Is how did I come to know this? After 9/11, I joined the FBI in 1996, and after 9/11, moved over to the Counterterrorism Division. The Washington field office set up two new units to deal with the problem, especially in the D.C. area, and the unit I ended up on, which was created for specific purposes in the Counterterrorism Division at the Washington office. There were a couple major cases that we worked. One was more of a threat case, a significant threat to the United States, and the other one was, we worked a lot of cases, but this is kind of how I came to understand the Brotherhood threat. And one of the cases was more of an espionage and counterintelligence case dealing with a chaplain in the U.S. Army who was a Muslim, who was providing information to detainees at Guantanamo Bay, as well as receiving information. And there was a huge case that, quite frankly, was not handled well inside the military. And but a lot of individuals pled guilty or were convicted because of what they were doing down there. Translators mistranslating interviews and interrogations, and to benefit the detainees, and all kinds of other stuff. Well, in the process of this and my investigation, obviously I looked to see where and how did this Army chaplain get to the position he was in, where did he get certified. I realized that the organization that certified him, which is up in Herndon, Virginia, was a Muslim Brotherhood entity. And that struck me as very disconcerting at the time. Even though my knowledge of the Brotherhood was, I'd say, moderate, it still, I knew that they were not friendly to the United States. And as this all unfolded, I came to see through investigation that a large number of Islamic organizations in the United States is a part of this movement, and all tied in with Hamas and Al-Qaeda. And so as I started kind of pushing into the Bureau on this and the FBI on this, started getting some real pushback. And a lot of the senior Muslim Brotherhood leaders in the United States, the cases on them had been closed. And when I called the field offices and asked them, why are we closing cases on this guy, the answer I got more often than not was because the boss of the office was having lunch with these guys once a week. And so it became clear that these guys were very good at what they do, which is they pose as friendly, helpful leaders in the Islamic community. But when you dig into who they are, where they came from, and their involvement in the creation of the Islamic movement here and the Muslim Brotherhood here, it paints a very different picture. And so in 2006, I finally put together the first training program inside the government to train federal, state, and local law enforcement, as well as we had the U.S. Attorney there and people from Department of Justice. And And everyone unanimously said everyone in the government needs to know this information. But as you may know, this information is not being taught inside the government anymore. It lasted a little bit, and colleagues of mine were doing piecemeal work inside trying to get people educated on this, but all of that has been shut down. I mean, I was teaching at the war colleges, at the Joint Forces Staff College, and other places, and all of that's been shut down under the direction of the leadership of the various agencies.
We're talking with John Guandolo. He's the author of Raising a Jihadi Generation, Understanding the Muslim Brotherhood Movement in America. Take a step back, if you would, John, and explain to us, because I think most Americans still, we have trouble understanding background here. What exactly is the Muslim Brotherhood, and where did it come from?
Well, the Muslim Brotherhood is an organization that was created in Egypt in 1928. And really the keys that average Americans should know about them is that their own bylaws and all of their historical documents say they were created for one reason, and that is to impose Islamic law on the entire world, to do it through violence when necessary, but through other means as possible. And in 2004, the FBI raided a home of a senior Hamas and Muslim Brotherhood operative. Hamas is a Muslim Brotherhood in Palestine, so Hamas is a subsidiary, if you will, of the Muslim Brotherhood. And we raided his home in Annandale, Virginia in 2004 and discovered in a sub-basement the archives of the Muslim Brotherhood in North America. And among those, many documents, photos, audio and videotapes, and financial records, leadership lists of organizations. We discovered a recording of a meeting in 1981 in Missouri with a senior Muslim Brotherhood leader speaking to a group of Muslim brothers. And what he did was he walked them through the history of the Muslim Brotherhood here. And I argue it's probably one of the greatest finds, because just for your audience, let me kind of boil it down here. It reaffirms why they're here in the United States, which is why they say they're here, which is what their bylaws and their creed and everything else says. They seek to impose Islamic law on the world, that jihad is the way that they're going to do it, which is warfare against non-Muslims, and that they have a strategy. And they have a strategic document for North America that we discovered, and there's literally a written plan. All of this stuff I'm talking about has been entered into evidence in a trial in Dallas in 2008, which was the largest Hamas trial in United States history, which is United States versus Holy Land Foundation. And I walked through this in the book. So, and the book is me. I mean, the book is 100 pages, and I did it very tight, very succinct, and it's meant to be a real guide for people to understand this. And so if we look at the history of the Muslim Brotherhood here, when they came here in the 1950s and started really organizing in the early 1960s, now we're talking over 50 years ago, the very first, I'll just give a couple data points and let you guys kind of poke around. The very first Islamic organization in the United States was created by the Muslim Brotherhood, the Muslim Student Association. We know from their historical documents that the Muslim Brotherhood came here with a plan first. So Muslims didn't just randomly come to the United States and then the Brotherhood kind of came in and the first Muslims that came here and organized in the 1950s was the Muslim Brotherhood. And they set up all over the United States, starting in Indiana, Illinois, and Michigan, which would explain why Chicago is the hub of Hamas in the United States. In Indiana, you've got the largest Muslim Brotherhood organization in Plainfield, the Islamic Society of North America, and I think everyone's well aware that Dearborn and Detroit, Michigan, also called Dearbornistan, is just a beehive of jihadi activity. Well, that's where the Brotherhood set up shop first. And then as they started spreading across the country, they set up just groups of 5 or 6 men about 150 or 200 miles apart. I mean, it's an amazing, when you start unpacking this, how well organized they were, and how they set up their structure here. And so their goal was to get inside communities that were completely, especially in the 60s, completely really unaware that this was going on, and they just started over time insinuating themselves into the community, creating social organizations, community organizations, and then later media organizations, public relations organizations, educational organizations, all across the board, exactly what their plan said they were going to do. And between 1963, 1962, and the early 80s, about 84, all of the major Muslim organizations created in America were created by the Muslim Brotherhood.
You know,
And,
John.
yeah.
You know, John, just listening to this, number one, it's besides being factual, it's frightening. And I think the thing that's most concerning to me as I listen to what you said, something you commented on earlier, that there was a time when there was training about this being given inside the military and inside the government, but all of that basically has stopped now. What has changed? Why isn't the warning being sounded inside the military and inside the intelligence community?
And the White House. I mean, of course, we know what's going on in the White House.
Well, I will say this. We can go by name, and I do that in my book. And I'll mention in a moment, but there's a new website for law enforcement across the country that came out last week, really about 6 days ago, specifically on this, and they go much deeper. But in the book, I list about a dozen individuals that are key inside the movement. But, I mean, if you look at the top 200, 300 Muslim Brotherhood leaders in the United States, many of those are inside the government in advisory roles. And if you go just by name, the Islamic advisors inside the White House, inside the Pentagon, inside FBI, CIA, DHS, you will find that 100% of them are a part of the Muslim Brotherhood movement, including the females who are part of the Muslim Sisterhood, which is a female parallel to the Brotherhood. And that is not John's professional opinion. That's fact. You can go through these folks and tie them directly to organizations we know to be a part of this movement. And when we have individuals that you can't tie directly, you can look at what comes out of their mouths, and they are spouting exactly what the Muslim Brotherhood is spouting. So it's not too hard to do, use a little logic and reason and realize they're certainly in line with the Brotherhood's movement. And so when you have leaders in America who turn to their right or left to get advice on what to do, and they say things like, well, there's no such thing as Islamic law, really, so you don't need to worry about it. Even though 100% of the jihadis we're fighting say they're fighting and dying and killing Americans in support of Islamic law, and you can go on Amazon.com and get hundreds of Islamic law books, most of them in English, by the way. You realize that our leadership truly has been rendered witless by these guys, and we've decided to take the advice of people we can easily identify as enemies over factual evidence sitting right before us about what is true and what's factual and what's not. So when you ask, how is its training shut down? I mean, in the spring of 2012, the FBI director, the DHS secretary, and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs all shut this training down because known Hamas entities like Council on American Islamic Relations, which is a Hamas entity, and the Islamic Society in North America, which is a Muslim Brotherhood entity, per evidence in the largest Hamas trial in U.S. history, and a financial support entity for Hamas, proven by the evidence. Well, those two entities complain that the training is offensive to the Muslim community, so our leaders shut it down. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And the amount of what I believe is criminal negligence, it's professional negligence if they don't know. And their job is to know if you're the FBI director, the DHS secretary. But when Americans are now dead, Fort Hood, Boston, and elsewhere, Little Rock, Arkansas, and Portland, Oregon, and we could go on, Seattle, other acts of jihad around the country in the last 10 years, and our leaders don't know this stuff.